Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 95. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined as always by Chris Chapman from Fox Sports Las Vegas and the Golden Knights pre- and post-game show. This episode, like all the others, is brought to you by the Las Vegas Advisor at lasvegasadvisor.com, by Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, and by Joe Riccio and Boris over at marathonlaw.com. So that's the plugs. We'll talk about the free ticket giveaway a little bit later in the episode. Chap, I'm a little bit pissed.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it. I'm pretty salty.
Well,
it was nice. What? Go ahead.
I sit next to you at the games every night, so I kind of have an idea where you're going to go with this.
Yeah, I just, okay, I'll just get into it last night. For the second time in 2 games against the Minnesota Wild, there's been some pretty dirty play and a couple of fights and a couple of dust-ups. But here's the thing. The first thing I want to talk about, and forgive me, this is going to be a rant of a few minutes, is retaliation after a clean hit. Last night, young Mr. Is it Juracek? Is that his name?
Yeah, Juracek.
Juracek. Toe-picked as Keegan Kolesar was pursuing him in the boards. He was going headfirst in the boards. He was going to get checked if he was standing up. It looks at first blush like it might have been a dirty hit, but like you said, you sat next to me last night. It wasn't a dirty hit. The kid toe-picked in front of him. And when we spoke to Keegan Kolesar after the game, he in fact said he tried to hold the kid up because he knew he was going literally crown of the head into the boards. Okay, it's a hockey play. It happens fast. But here comes Marcus Foligno, the fucking prick that put Ivan Barbashev out for a month with a dirty slew foot hit that he didn't get suspended or fined for. He calls and asks Keegan Kolesar for a fight. Keegan Kolesar is not saying no, right? But he's fighting a little bit out of his weight class against Marcus Foligno. The fight is just a hockey fight. It's not that big of a deal. But I have some problems. And the first problem I have is, where's Nick Hague? Where's the true heavyweight in the lineup? And we're going to show you right now the fight that Nick Hague had with Marcus Foligno a couple of 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was, where he more than held his own. This, in my opinion, was Nick Hague's fight. And then later in the game, Marco Rossi steamrolls Mark Stone in the corner.
That was Matt Boldy.
I'm sorry. Matt Boldy steamrolls Mark Stone. Again, it was a legal check, okay? Not a dirty hit at all. But where was the Golden Knights' answer? Maybe not Nick Hague, because Nick Hague's 6'6", 245. But where's Zach Whitecloud? Where is Nick Waugh? Where is anybody who's standing up to stand up for their captain the way that Keegan Kolesar stands up for every single one of them? And I'm flabbergasted that this team, as talented as they are, they lack any grit whatsoever, right? Keegan Kolesar is the only one who stands up for his teammates. And, we talked in the report card episode, our last episode. Is there anything you can really say that's not going great? Well, things are still going great, but now after I see this 2 games against Minnesota with another game to come a little bit later in the season, I wonder if they might be looking for a grit, talented forward. No disrespect to Ryan Reeves, but a guy that can play the Golden Knights system and be a contributor. But when he's on the ice, he demands accountability for the other teams. Minnesota has taken numerous runs at them in both of the games. Barbashev hurt, like I mentioned before. Kolesar fighting a little bit out of his weight class. And he'll never say that. It's just my opinion that they need to be a little bit tougher. They're more talented than almost every team in the NHL. But when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, I think that they need to be tougher. And Chris will go ahead when he tells you, I was fucking hot in the press box last night. And I think that the league has to start giving out instigator penalties when a fight is offered after a clean hit. Dirty hit is different. This league polices itself. The players police themselves. That's what makes hockey hockey and different from all the other sports. But now, every time there's a clean body check, somebody wants to fight somebody. And if they're not going to add an instigator penalty, if they're not going to make it punitive to start a fight or a rehearsed fight or whatever you want to call it, this kind of madness is going to go on. And I think that the Golden Knights need to, first of all, they need to look after the captain. And the young Mr. Boldy should have been held accountable, or someone should have been held accountable. We don't know if they took a receipt. I hope they took a receipt. But I was disgusted with the lack of response by the team after the hit on Stone, and the fact that Kolesar is the only guy, and they have other guys that can fight. But boys, it's time to toughen up a little bit. Time to stand up for each other a little bit more than you have. Keep being the ultimate talented, skilled team, the best coach team in the NHL. But man, oh man, chap, that was hard to watch last night.
Well,
I'm done. Go ahead.
Well, I'll say this. Keegan Kolesar should not have had to fight Marcus Foligno. It was a good, clean hit. There was nothing he could have done to prevent Jiricek from going into the boards. It wasn't boarding. It wasn't a cross check.
Charging, nothing.
Nothing like that. And my original thought was, well, I wonder if this had something to do, like if Kolesar went to Foligno after the bullshit hit on Barbashev and he told him, we've got a score to settle. But we found out last night that that wasn't the case.
Right.
So,
and thank you to the Golden Knights for letting us talk to him after the game so we could get some clarity about that.
So, yeah, I have an issue with the fact that Foligno is, listen, you and I are old school guys. You've been watching the game since,
Forever.
the 70s. I've been watching since the early 90s. The game was very different then. And as you said, the game polices itself. I have no issue with a guy having to answer the bell for a dirty hit. Like if you take a run at a guy, you have to answer the bell. I've got no issue with that. Where I have an issue is a good clean hit and then a guy having to fight for that clean hit. Now, I'll say this about the Boldy hit. I got no problem with it. It was perfectly fine. It was a good clean hit. Stone got the shit knocked out of him. But Zach Whitecloud was there.
Right.
And Zach Whitecloud put Boldy on his ass and stood over him. Now, the Golden Knights were on the penalty kill there. So I wasn't expecting Whitecloud to do something egregious to Boldy while he was on the ground. But Zach Whitecloud was there, and he did retaliate, and he did knock Matt Boldy on his ass. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that should have been the end of it. But there was some chippiness in that game. There was a moment where Marco Rossi was chirping with, I believe it was Ivan Barbashev.
It was Barbie. It looked like they were going to go at center ice.
It looked like they were going to fight. This was in the third period. So again, it's a 1-goal game. Maybe the circumstances prevented it from happening. Braden McNabb almost annihilated Frederick Gaudreau at center ice. And I even said to you, boy, it's a good thing this isn't 30 years ago, because Frederick Gaudreau would be picking his skates up off center ice if it was. I don't know what happened with these two teams, but it seems like there's some bad blood that's kind of building between the Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild. I'm here for it. I kind of like that. I think it adds some intrigue. Now, these teams do have one more game left against each other. It's going to take place in St. Paul. And, who knows? I don't think it'll happen where they play in the first round of the playoffs. But They did a couple of years ago, and it was a really damn good series. Went 7 games. I wouldn't mind seeing the Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild meeting again in the playoffs because I have a feeling with the temperature heating up a little bit the way it did, I think we'd be in for some really good hockey. Now, I don't think the Wild are good enough to get to the Western Conference Finals.
Exactly.
I think they have a much tougher road to get there than the Golden Knights. I think for them to have to go through both Dallas and Winnipeg would
And
be really, really
Colorado
tough.
potentially.
And potentially Colorado. It's extremely difficult. But you know what? Maybe they make a move at the deadline, improve themselves, get better. I don't know. But to the original point, Keegan Kolesar is the consummate professional. He's a consummate team player. And, Bruce Cassidy made a comment last night, and I believe it was directed at Keegan Kolesar in that a lot of times when guys become more gifted offensively and start scoring more, sometimes they kind of forget who they are as a player. Keegan Kolesar is not that guy. He remembers who he is. He remembers his upcoming or his upbringing in the league, in the organization. He's been with the organization a long time. He was with Chicago. He was one of those guys that they got the very first season. I mean, he's been a part of the organization since the very first day. And so it means a lot to him. This organization is everything to him, and his teammates are everything to him. And we've heard he's a vocal leader in the locker room. He's picked up his play in terms of scoring, career high. He kind of joked. He's like, "Oh, that's the first time I didn't know that." Like he didn't know he got to 10 goals. So career high for Keegs in the NHL, and I think he's going to keep getting. He's going to keep scoring. He's put himself in good position. So someone else has to step up. I don't know who it is. It should be Nick Hague. I agree. He's a big guy.
And he's tough.
And he is a tough kid. He's a really tough kid.
He's a tough kid, and he has a giant wingspan.
Yeah.
Right?
Like he's a guy who you don't want to get punched in the mouth by.
Right. But he doesn't punch anybody in the mouth.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's just not his game, but I think it's a part of his game that I think the Golden Knights would be better served if it was there.
Let me ask you this question. Last night, you asked Bruce a fantastic question in the postgame where he got to talk about the organization and talent acquisition and all of those other things. In that little nugget, he was talking about the pro scouts and running into the pro scouts every now and then. And their mission is to find people who would be a good fit. What does the team need? Do you remember when he was talking about that?
Yep.
So he's talking to the pro scouts. They're talking about the roster. They're talking about players all over the NHL, which is how this works. But do you think that somewhere in that conversation, and listen, I would need to do some research to think about people who I think fit this bill. And I'm not talking about Nick Cousins, loudmouth pussies that won't fight. I'm talking about a guy on the fourth line, chips in a little bit offensively, but at the end of the day, the other team realizes that if they pull any bullshit, and there was a ton of it last night, there was a bunch of hitting from behind, there was a bunch of chops and slashes and stuff like that, just sort of a sheriff, somebody who says, when he's there, if you fuck with our guys, I fuck back. I mean, the first guy that comes to mind is somebody like Jeannot, right? Not the Jeannot that was in Tampa, the Jeannot that was in Nashville.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody like that. The other team has to respect the potential of payback. So do you think that the Golden Knights, when they're talking, do you think they're saying, man, I wish if we had a gritty guy we could go out and get, a dependable fourth liner? I mean, think Tanner Pearson, but likes to fight.
Well,
or
I've got a guy for you.
Okay.
We actually just saw him in the press box last week when the Sabres were
the
in
kid
town.
that was in Minnesota,
Jordan Greenway.
Oh, he was a scary guy in a press box.
His contract expires at the end of the season. He can chip in a little bit offensively. Buffalo, who knows if they're going to plan on re-signing him? My guess is probably not. He is a tough guy. He fits the bill of exactly what you were speaking about. And he's going to come on the cheap because his contract is up at the end of the year. He only makes $3 million a year. I think that's a guy who, if the Golden Knights are targeting someone to the quote when Gerard Gallant was here and they acquired Ryan Reeves was to keep the flies off the honey.
Right. That's
And
that's it. 100%.
And I think if we continue to see teams, because who was on the ice last night for the Wild? A locomotive from Russia named Yakov Trenin. And he didn't do anything, malicious. And he didn't do, listen, full disclosure. When he put that hit on Mark Stone last year, it wasn't a dirty hit.
No,
it was a clean hit. But when you have a guy out there like Trenin who has the ability to inflict punishment with clean hits, it keeps guys honest.
Right.
And I think that's one thing this Golden Knights team is missing. They're missing that guy who has teams with their head on a swivel. Kind of the way Dustin Byfuglien was with Chicago. I'm sure you hated his guts when he was with the Blackhawks.
Oh my God, he was a freight train.
But a good player, a leader in the locker room,
and chipped in a little bit offensive, good defensive player, rock solid.
Yeah, a guy who nobody in their right mind is going to fuck with because they know at the end of the day that is a fight they are not going to want to take. And to me, Jordan Greenway is one of those guys. The Golden Knights don't need to go out and get a high-end talent player like a Noah Hannafin this year or Tomas Hertl. What they need someone who is going to respect them because they know if they cross that line, there's going to be hell to pay. And, I'm sure there's other guys out there. Who knows?
That's that's an absolute, because remember, we were standing there and he walked by and I'm like, isn't that? And you go, yeah, that's him.
Yep. He is a big human being. He is a tough. Listen, he's from Albany, New York. I don't know if you know much about Albany. Yeah, it's the capital of New York, but it's an old kind of Rust Belt, blue collar town. And if you grow up,
town.
Yes. And if you grow up in a place like Albany, much like if you grow up in a place like Youngstown or Flint, you are going to be built differently. You are going to be tough. You're going to be hardened, and nothing is going to scare you. So I think that's the kind of guy who legitimately would fit the need to keep the flies off the honey. Now, I don't know what Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee are thinking. Maybe they're like, you two guys are fucking completely out of your mind. But
possible.
Maybe not. They did go out and get Ryan Reeves. They did go out and get Nick Cousins. They've gotten guys in the past who maybe aren't the most gifted offensive players. But they're guys. They did their job. Right? They knew what their role was. They did their job, and they did it well.
Well, in 7 weeks from now, the trade deadline is March the 7th, I believe. If the Golden Knights make a move, we can look back at episode 95 and say, hey, we were way ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
So you don't think I'm out of my mind with this maniacal rant to open the episode, right?
No, I don't think so, because you have a team who has a lot of high-end skill guys. You are also a team that is one high-end skill guy away going down away from not being a Stanley Cup contender. If Jack Eichel gets hurt, if Mark Stone misses significant time, the team had a really difficult time last year rebounding when they lost Stone. I know they went out and got Hertl and Hannafin, but they never really recovered. They never really
had a chance to. They never had a chance to recover.
So I think it's important that you have protectors. Every king has knights.
No
I
pun
mean,
intended.
it's a really shitty pun, but you have, I don't know the all the dynamics of or being able to put it into words, but you need a protector. You need a guy to protect your house, to protect your nest egg, to protect your most valuable asset. And Keegan Kolesar should not be that guy all the time.
Right.
It's just it's an unfair ask of him to constantly be that guy.
I
And
agree.
and you know what? Full credit to him because he always is that guy.
Every
If there's
single time
if
answers
there's
the bell.
if there's bullshit that doesn't even involve him, Keegan Kolesar is that guy.
All right. Enough of that. I came home from the game last night, and as happy as I was with the game, and we'll use that as the transition into what we're talking about. I was just really unhappy with their lack of accountability, and that'll be that. So before we get on to the actual hockey, now that I've unburdened myself from anger, let's get a quick word in from Dr. John Pierce at Ageless Forever.
So if there's a little bit too much whip in the shaft of your hockey stick and you want to be able to hit the back of the net, here's your answer, but I'm not going to tell you anything about it because I'm going to let my good friend Dr. Pierce tell you exactly what this bad boy is, and prepare to be amazed.
This is the Phoenix Pro. This is a home unit to deliver extracorporeal, I call it sound wave therapy. The technical term is shock wave therapy.
Here's where we get to the fun stuff, kids.
Okay? And they applied it to their genitalia, and they found that, yes, indeed, it improves blood flow. We talk about, male genitalia. What is an erection? It is a blood flow issue. So if you're having issues, and you've gone to see your doctor, you've had your testosterone balanced, and you're doing those things, and it's working great. If you're finding that you're using a medication like Viagra, Cialis, something like that, and you're finding less and less effect, that means that the blood flow isn't as good. Something like this can help to mitigate that issue.
So let me break this down for you in layman's terms. If your junk is more like a pool noodle than a pool cue, it's going to make your junk hard. Dr. John Pierce, Ageless Forever, www.agelessforever.net. Don't be shy. Send a message. The first consultation is free. You'll meet with Dr. Pierce personally. You'll have the ability to share whatever it is you want to share. This bad boy works. So, something for you to think about. www.agelessforever.net. Send a message. Take advantage of the free consultation, and let's get you to be the best you can be.
Okay, chap, let's talk hockey. They had their occasional stinker against the Islanders, lose 3-0. They lose 2-1 to the Rangers. Bruce was a little different after the game. They could have easily won that game. The Rangers, I wouldn't say fluke goals, but they weren't high skill goals, and they certainly weren't scored by high skill players.
Yeah.
And Bruce was, the fan base lost their shit. The sky was falling after 2 losses in a row. I don't know how that could possibly be, but it is, and it was. Mike, our good friend Mike, that jerk off, he's calling for trades. He wants people to swap out of the locker room, right after the game. But the sky wasn't falling, and Bruce was, listen, slumps happen, right? The 5-on-5 scoring dried up, and I'm sure that you'll get into that because that was something we talked about quite a bit lately. But last night was a very solid effort against a very solid team. A lot of up and down hockey, not the crispest and cleanest. It looked like it was going to turn into pond hockey for a couple of minutes, but at the bottom line, they ended the modest 2-game losing streak at the Fortress. Haven't lost 3 in a row yet this year, kids. But they outskilled, but more importantly, they outworked Minnesota. They outshot them over 2-1. And they got dirty, gritty goals. So tell me, give me the whole takeaway from those 3 games.
Well, I look at the Islanders game and it was a little bit of complacency, I think. I think it was a team that sucks. The Islanders are not a good team. And they may have overlooked them a little bit. They were sloppy. There were lazy plays. There were a lot of giveaways that resulted. I think all 3, 5-on-5. Well, I don't know if it were 5-on-5, but all 5 goals that the Islanders faced a goalie came off of giveaways. 3 goals. Yep. So, when you play, and I remember asking Bruce about this way back when this, 4 weeks ago, when they started this stretch of games where they were only going to play 2 road games. Both of them were in San Jose. And I remember asking Bruce if he was worried about complacency and maybe, guys being distracted. He wasn't worried about the distractions, but there was a little concern about maybe some complacency. You're home all this time around the holidays. You got family in town, whatever. Well, they navigated that stretch really well. Christmas, they had the screw up against Montreal. But in this stretch of games, they only lost 3 games. The Montreal game, the Islander game, and the Ranger game. And the reality is they probably should have won one of them.
At least the Ranger game was very winnable.
And they probably
Shesterkin.
and they should have gotten at least an overtime point in one of them. So in that stretch of games where we go back to, what was it, Vancouver on December 17th to today, which is January 12th or 13th?
13th, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking like 26, 27 days. There was really only one bad game in that entire stretch. I think the Montreal game, you say, yeah, all right. But they came out and played well in the first period. They should have put the fucking game to bed and been done with it. But credit to Montreal and Sam Montembeault. They played a pretty good game. And you know what? They deserve the win. But the Islanders game was the only one where you're like, what a fucking disaster. That's pretty good. That was the
Utah game with half the goals against.
Yeah, exactly. The day after Thanksgiving. After you have this long road trip to the East Coast, you're tired, you come back, you get a point against Colorado on the road, you come home, you play the Jets on Black Friday, you kick the shit out of them again, and then you have the sleeper against Utah, but then they respond. They responded and got really good again. So, the whole sky is falling thing. I think Bruce, and I wasn't there against the Rangers in the press box. I wasn't in the post-game presser. I was at the game, but I wasn't in the presser. I didn't get to hear what Bruce said. But I remember saying to you last night, I imagine Bruce was not nearly as disappointed in the Ranger game as he was in the Islander game. And my thought process is, all right, when you combine the two, you're probably not happy because you probably deserve the point, at least in one of those games, and that was the Ranger one. You didn't get a point in either of them. But like I was explaining to my son, if you're going to drop 2 games in a row, drop them to the Islanders and Rangers. Because in the long run, yeah, it's 2 points, but it's better than dropping 2 points to Calgary. It's better than dropping 2 points to the Kings. It's better than dropping 2 points to Colorado. So if there's going to be teams you lose to, let it be teams in the Eastern Conference. So I thought the Ranger game, you know what, as you mentioned, Shesterkin, he was the story of the game. That's a team that's now won a couple games in a row. They're playing well. Igor Shesterkin's back from the injured list. They're a good team. They have too much talent to be where they are. I didn't think the Rangers did anything that blew me away, other than the fact that they really didn't give up a whole lot, and Igor Shesterkin was really damn good. But I thought that Samsonov was pretty good as well. He played a pretty good game. The second goal, maybe a little fluky. I don't think you blame him for that. And the first goal was on a power play where they couldn't clear the puck. So I think it's a game where you're like, shit, we lost the Rangers. The Islander game is the one that pisses you off, but then you're happy with the effort I think they gave against the Rangers, and you're certainly happy with last night because They deserved 2 points in that game.
They dominated the game.
They were the better team. I thought.
Yep.
Even early on, when they gave up that early goal, they trailed 1-0. I still thought they were the better team.
Just after the Rangers game, the game you were up with the kids, there was something really different about Bruce in the post game, and I understand that I see things probably different than a lot of the younger folks on press row and stuff like that. He wasn't as engaged when he was talking to us. He looked like a guy who had a lot on his mind after the Ranger game, like the 5-on-5 scoring that got addressed multiple times, and he got asked a dozen times, people keeping a shot clock on how long it's been between the Golden Knights 5-on-5 goals. He looked like a coach who was contemplating how to get his team out of a potential slump. I don't want to say distracted, because that's not the right word, and that would be disrespectful, and Bruce is not that. But he was talking and he was answering the questions, but I could feel like the wheels were spinning. And he wasn't wheels spinning about what our friend Alan Snell was going to ask him. He was wheels spinning about sorry, couldn't resist.
Come on.
His wheels were spinning about what's he going to do to motivate change. And, they went from night game to late matinee, so there's no time to practice. There really wasn't a lot of time to think about it, which I think might have been the best thing, right? You lost 2-1, fuck it, get up, no morning skate, go to the rink, do your job, get the W, and that's exactly what they did. And last night, all in all, I think was a really great performance. They held the Rangers without a shot for nearly the first 11 minutes of the game. Minnesota didn't have their first shot on net until 9 minutes into the first period. Yes, they gave up the first goal. We've talked about that till we both vomit. Okay. But defensively, this team is operating as good as they are. And listen, they're going to be fine, right? Nick Waugh is back, right? We missed Jack Eichel last night. They said it was an illness. Bruce said not a long thing at all. He's expected to travel. So Tuesday night against that, what's that fella's name? He used to play here, the little one. A little guy, big mouth little guy, right? Was here for a while, got a trophy.
I'm drawing a blank.
So that game Tuesday night in that city in Tennessee, whatever
Memphis?
It's called. Yeah,
Chattanooga?
something.
Knoxville.
That game has the chance to be the fourth time that the Golden Knights will put their expected training camp lineup out. I expect big things. They have a tough stretch. They have a strange travel home back. They have some back-to-backs. They see Dallas a couple of times in 2 weeks. They see St. Louis 3 days apart. The scheduler was
a lot of games
eating
against the
mushroom.
Central Division coming up.
A lot of Central stuff. But, the sky's not falling, folks. I guess that's the kind of point. So we're going to talk.
I never really understood. Like, they're tied for the league lead in points with 61.
Best points percentage at 709.
They've dominated the Pacific Division. Now, Edmonton, LA are both playing really well as well, but
and play each other tonight.
It's to be expected. They're good teams. So, just calm down. Like, every time they lose a game, you don't need to trade away this guy and acquire superstar and bench this guy and put that guy in net. I guess that's why I don't get too high or too low when it comes to individual games. It's an 82-game season. This team is fine. You have one of the best tandems in the front office. You have arguably the best coach in the NHL
and staff
behind the bench. You've got a great staff. I don't give a shit that they lost to the Islanders. It at the end of the day, you know what? You go back in that Stanley Cup year, you would look at every game that they played in the regular season. I'm sure there's a game or two where you're like, oh, fuck. they lost to those guys. Like, it happens. Like, this isn't the NBA where teams are winning 65, 70 games a year. I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 33-4 in the NBA. It doesn't matter in the NHL because the 8th seed can win the Stanley Cup.
Yep. Very
All
true.
that matters is getting in. Get in, win your games in the playoffs, and that's ultimately all that matters. So, you know what? This team is fine. The sky is, I mean, I can't believe that people would even begin to think that the sky was falling. Oh my God, they lost a game.
They were losing their minds. I mean, you and I both, and all of us, listened to the post-game show with Ryan Wallace after the game.
It's good. It's good. I think therapy.
I mean, I feel better because I yell at my radio, and you know, that calms me on my way back home.
As
But before we
traffic out to Summerlin.
before we button this up, let's get a word in from Joe Riccio and Boris at Marathon Law.
I'm here with Joe Riccio from Marathon Law Group. And Joe, sometimes when couples go through divorce, one of the partners will deprive the other partner of visitation with their children. Obviously, this is never a good situation for anybody. So what steps can someone take to maybe deal with this type of issue if it arises?
Well, thanks, Chris. One of the most important things you can do is make sure that you have a court order. And in the state of Nevada, over the last several years, the Nevada legislature has moved towards involving both parents and finding it best for children to be involved, or parents to be involved with both children equally, both on the legal custody and the physical custody side of things. So if you're being denied time or deprived time, whether it's in a court order or not, you definitely want to take measures to prove or at least show the court that you've been making those overt efforts and that the other side has been depriving you.
So maybe like keeping a calendar or something like that and marking when you have visitation with the child, maybe marking when you should, and if you don't get visitation on that particular day.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only could you keep a calendar log, but there's applications that the parties can get into without the court for free that allow them to communicate that the court can look at when that time is right. And then there's other mechanisms that you can engage in as well, such as text messaging and emailing and making sure you're keeping those records.
Okay, I ranted and raved and pissed and yelled and swore and cussed and done everything more than I should have in this episode. Let's finish up with something that was actually really special. So special, in fact, that it got covered literally not only by the NHL Network after the game, but on the NHL Network radio on all the programs this morning. I want to talk about Marc Andre Fleury. I want to talk about the whole of his time in Vegas and what he meant to this franchise. Nobody knew what this Golden Knights team was going to be like. Was it going to be a traditional expansion team like Seattle is turning out to be? When they went out and got Marc Andre Fleury, who at the time they thought was sort of on the downside of a very good Hall of Fame career, I think that was a signal that this team was going to be different from the get-go. And from the second he showed up, he embraced this city. He took this is a guy, I think he said he had never been to Las Vegas, who literally was the first guy to carry the flag for this franchise. And I don't want to talk about his on-ice achievements. Everybody knows that. Cup final in the first year, all of that other stuff. He meant so much to this city for so many years, and we're not getting anywhere near the end. This is a tribute. This is a loving look back at the guy who maybe is partially responsible for making the Golden Knights who the Golden Knights have become. And last night in the warm-up, he must have given away a dozen pucks, maybe more. You could sense he wasn't playing last night. He knew that he wasn't playing. He was taking in the warmth of the very respectful Vegas Golden Knights fans in the arena. And that tribute last night was moving. And we've seen lots of tribute videos. I mean, a lot of people leave and we get them and they're nice and everything like that. But chap, he is, and he won't get a statue because he left, right? He won't wear a Golden Knights hat when he goes to the Hall of Fame. But he, as a human, as a man, embraced this city and brought hockey to this city in a way that probably nobody else could in an expansion era situation like the Golden Knights entered the league in. And it was just such a joy to see him be emotional. And at the end of the game was not in question. The last minute, everybody in the stands cheering Fleury. I mean, as a hockey person, that was one of the most moving, touching experiences that I've had watching professional hockey in my life. So let's give Flowers some flowers. Terrible pun. Sorry about that. And we'll use that as the last topic for today.
Well, you know, he will forever be the first Hall of Famer that I covered as a hockey reporter. And I built a relationship with him. I had a lot of good conversations with him over the time he was here. And he was always good to talk to. You know, he always respected the media here in town. When he got here, there were guys from Pittsburgh who we met and they said, "You are going to absolutely love this guy. He's a great guy. He's fun to talk to. He's got a great sense of humor." And, you know, for me, what he did for this organization is he gave them legitimacy right away. And we've seen the Kraken come into the league. They're still trying to establish an identity. They seem to be going the wrong direction. Marc Andre Fleury brought this team to 3 wins of a Stanley Cup title in their very first season, which is something we will probably never, ever see again in the history of professional sports. A franchise that is an expansion team coming into the league and flipping it upside down and doing what this team, you know, we saw the Florida Marlins, Arizona Diamondbacks win titles in Major League Baseball, but they didn't have the sustained success that this organization has had. And Marc Andre Fleury laid the foundation for that. And he immediately brought legitimacy to the team. I remember wondering year one if they were going to trade him at the deadline because they, you know, if you listen to all the experts, they weren't going to be any good. So they're going to be moving guys for assets. Marc Andre Fleury's name was always up because he had only 1 year left on his deal after that first season. So he would have been a prime candidate to move in at the deadline or maybe in the summer. But because of his play and the play of everyone else on that team, they were able to keep it all together. And I would say to this day that without Marc Andre Fleury, Max Pacioretty probably never becomes a Golden Knight. Mark Stone maybe never becomes a Golden Knight. You know, this is a guy who helped create the culture in this city, a guy who was a fan favorite from day one. And I would say a guy who, you know what, you may never hang his jersey from the rafters. He's probably not going to get the statue, but a guy who was every bit as important to this franchise as the players who are still playing on this team today. And for me personally, I really always enjoyed my time with him. And one of the cool aspects is years ago, the NHL put these little clips out with players. It was for some kind of award that they were doing. And they put one out for Marc Andre Fleury. And there is a clip of me asking Marc Andre Fleury a question. And I was the only reporter in that 30-second clip that they used. And I still have it pinned on my Twitter account, and I will forever have it pinned because it's just such a cool memory for me. And like I said, the first Hall of Famer I ever covered is a guy I built a good relationship. I didn't get to see him last night, but I saw him last year when the Wild came to town. We had a good, few minutes to chat and catch up, and, he gave me a hug, and, we said our goodbyes. And it dawned on me last night, unless this team plays in the Wild in the playoffs, I'm probably never going to get to see Marc Andre Fleury in uniform again. I'm probably never going to get to see him in the locker room again. And I think for a lot of players around the league and for a lot of teams and for a lot of fans, I think maybe it doesn't mean anything, but for me, it means a lot. And I think, for people here in Vegas, chanting his name, it was an appreciation of what he did for this organization and an appreciation from the city for what he did for not only the organization, but for the city.
Congratulations, Marc Andre. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. And on behalf of a couple of guys who live in Vegas, thank you for everything that you did for our city in the fairly brief time that you were here. So we've rambled on for a good amount again. Let's talk about the golden giveaway. Obviously, flower is going to be the key word for this one. So go ahead and tell them what we're up to, chap.
All right. So you've got 2 weeks from yesterday. That's when the game is. January 26th, Golden Knights, Florida Panthers, courtesy of Marathon Law Group, Joe Riccio, Boris, everyone over there. Golden giveaway. Thanks to those guys. The game is a 5:00 puck drop. And to get the tickets, you got to like, comment, share. Am I missing something? Subscribe.
Yep.
Subscribe, like, comment, share. Type the word flower into the comments.
On the YouTube page, please.
On the YouTube page. And some lucky fan is going to win tickets in Section 4, which are great seats. It's in the corner down at the end where the Golden Knights shoot once. But that's not all. You get free parking for the game. You also get dinner with us at El Dorado Cantina.
These two handsome bastards.
Yeah, what is that, on Dean Martin? I don't even know what.
Yep.
Yeah, on Dean Martin.
It's attached to a big building that's like sapphire blue colored.
Well, it's behind the Resorts World. So
oh yeah, that's a better description. Yeah. Behind Resorts World, ladies and gentlemen.
So you got to go down and pick the tickets up from Joe at Marathon Law. And I mean, listen, I sat in the company seats the other night. They're not nearly as good as these seats. And I mean, someone already.
One of you.
Yeah, one of you is going to have the opportunity to go. So again, courtesy of Joe and Boris over at Marathon Law, their golden giveaway. And we thank you guys for listening. And subscribe, like, share, and comment. And we want to build this up, and this is a way we're going to do it. And we want to be good for our sponsors. So help us out, help them out, and listen, go to the game on them.
Thanks, as always, to the Las Vegas Advisor at lasvegasadvisor.com, my good friend Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, and before the multiple-time aforementioned Marathon Law Group, Joe Riccio and Boris at marathonlaw.com. That's going to wrap up episode 95. The comment is flower, kids. Like, share, subscribe. HockeyNightsVegas.com is the link tree where you can find the podcast. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on iTunes, we're on iHeartRadio, and just about anywhere you get your podcast. If you don't want to see these two handsome bastards' faces, you can just listen to us yap. So that's going to wrap up episode 95. We'll be back again next week. We're out of here.